And so we end our series of movies, per movie, but with a short, like 25 minutes approximately. Um, and out of all of these, it's the one that involves kind of the most Christmas, not in a sense of a direct way, because, well, movies like Die Hard 2 were also set during that time, but this is based on a story centered entirely around Christmas. Charles Dickens considered best magnum opus. We did already an adaptation of it with Batman Noel 2 years ago, but this one is actually something different. It's a short that Disney made in 1983, I think.
Yes.
An animated one using most of its characters. And if I recall correctly, this is actually one of the, because DuckTales was like a couple of years after, so this is technically one of the first major animated appearance of Scrooge McDuck. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Wow, he
as
was
the
literally
protagonist.
called Scrooge.
It's funny thing,
Makes
Karl Barks
sense.
specifically based his character around the character of Charles Dickens. So obviously when adapting this, bam, that was the logical thing to do. Um, so anyway, start.
Was this also the first time he was being voiced by Alan Young?
I think, well, if it's the first one, yes. Alex, but before start being a black screen before the distributed by Buena Vista logo and before Mickey Mouse face terrorize you for the rest of eternity. 3, 3, 2, 1, click.
Fun fact, this
Funny.
was a featurette back in the day. What are featurettes? Featurettes are a bit more rare nowadays, but basically they were, let's call them short movies that would show before movies in theaters. You had stuff like this, which came before Nightmare Before Christmas, and then later we had Prince and the Pauper, which would set the record for
Why is
longest
Mickey's
featurette until
Yes,
Olaf's
lives.
Frozen, whatever.
Why is Mickey's face even on the front and center of the thing? He's not even the main character
It,
in this
it,
one.
it's publicity because Mickey is
Mascot
the most recognized.
privileges.
Remember, around by this time, comics, no one knew who Scrooge was, so it was kind of like a new thing to introduce. So obviously, they went on with the next close character, which was Mickey, which in this story plays the role of Bob Cratchit.
Funny enough, apparently John Lasseter was an animator on this.
Not
Doesn't
just that, but the
surprise me.
animation. Not just that, but the animation director was Eric Larson, one of the 9 old men.
The director was a guy named Bernie Mattinson, who's still around at Disney. He's been there since 1953.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I will say that this is not technically the first major appearance because Karl Barks worked on one of the short propaganda cartoon of the 40s, one specifically where Donald has to invest in Tidal Wars, and one of the quote-unquote spirits that help him making this decision to help with the war is Scrooge with a kilt. It was more like a prototype version, but basically it was him.
Was Alan Young voicing him already there?
No, I don't know. It was like a silent role. I think I haven't seen that.
Wow, Matt Matheson has been around Disney for so recently. His recent work was Ralph Breaks the Internet. He was an additional story artist.
The interesting thing about this short is that it doesn't involve your traditional, only your traditional Disney characters. Other characters from other Disney minor short and more obscure movies actually pop up filling in some of the roles, like characters from The Wind in the Willow.
During the 80s, Disney animation was pretty much still in its dark age. Remember, at the time, they were not really churning out any kind of memorable material, but this was one of the few jewels that they managed to turn in during that.
My family basically made it a tradition to watch this on Christmas ever since me and my sister were born. It's obviously the story has been told like a gajillion times, so it's kind of pointless telling exactly what it is. And everyone on both on the media and on the internet made their own version of it. It's practically a tradition. But that's, as Linkara put, it's just because it's that good and simple and effective.
You guys can't hear my audio coming.
No, don't worry, Dweebs.
Okay. several.
Yeah. A lot of
it-
times, aside from the modern shorts, they would also air in the classic shorts, as they called them. Basically, it was basically a combination of the modern new stuff where combined with the old ones.
This short is, in fact, the finale short for the House of Mouse Disney Christmas movie.
In more recent news, the DuckTales reboot recently, as for their Christmas special, paid tribute to this short, basically creating a kind of pseudo sequel of sorts.
Hey, Donald.
Let's just say, Teo, it's the pseudo sequel to this thing, of all things.
I really should.
Interesting.
I really need to recover that. I'm so behind.
On the subject of production, well, released more accurately, when they came out here in the UK in October 1983, it was re-released alongside a reissue of The Jungle Book, whereas in the US, when it got its release in December of that year, it was released with a reissue of The Rescuers.
Neat.
It was already around by this time that Tony Anselmo slowly stopped being an animator at Disney to completely commit to being the voice of Donald in every one of his appearances.
Fun fact, actually, Alan Young was one of the adaptators of the story on this as well. Before he became more of the prominent voice actor, go figure. Cannibals.
We don't talk about that, Jova. Poor Donald.
Time is money on the.
Wow, he ran back there quickly.
Well, they've clearly nerfed Donald's temper for this movie.
Did Christmas murder your family?
Well, remember,
it wouldn't really work in this kind of story.
And there you go.
Well, remember, Jova, we're applying the '90s Muppet movie logic, where we're having the Disney characters play the characters from the story. They're not
in
being
this
themselves.
case, these two, if I call out from the Wind in the Willows, I actually never seen that one, so I'm very actually alienated from that.
Pretty much everybody has grown up with at least one version of the story. I mean, I grew up with this one. A lot of new kids grew up with the Jim Carrey version.
Yeah. There's the
90s,
Muppet version.
90s kids grew up with the Muppet version. Yeah, there's so pretty much everybody has their own childhood version
I didn't grow up with the Muppet version, actually. The earliest Christmas Carol adaptation in my memory is Old Dog's Christmas Carol.
All Dogs? There was an Old Dogs
yeah, there was an Old Dogs adaptation of
Are
it.
you even surprised, Pedro? They serialized the shit out of that.
All Dogs was probably the most popular of Don Bluth's 90s stuff, so I guess that makes sense. And by 90s, I mean the sequel, which technically didn't even have Don Bluth on board, but hey, it was lucrative and one of the better sequels to Don Bluth stuff.
Is it any good, at least?
Yeah, it's good.
Which
I
sequel
don't
you on
remember
about?
how good the adaptation was, but Old Dogs. Twins.
Yeah. But, let's see, Old Dogs Go to Heaven was, of course, a great Don Bluth movie, although I think it was the last Don Bluth movie before he started going downhill. Second one was...
Even that one, even All Dogs Go to Heaven was already showing a bit of the cracks.
You know, funnily enough...
It didn't coin, but it had the big-lipped alligator moment.
Not just that. It was good, but it was not as good as his Golden Age trilogy.
You know the funny thing about both All Dogs Go to Heaven movies is both times the voice actor for Charlie is a voice actor or actor in general who kind of went a bit nuts. Like Charlie's first voice actor was Burt Reynolds. You all know the story about what happened with him eventually. And then the second one was Charlie Sheen.
Oh dear. Wait, really?
Yeah.
That's weird to think about.
Oh God, no! Goofy as a door handle.
Yeah, these things scared the shit out of me and my sister when we were kids.
Yeah, it's scaring me now.
Honk. Wow, even wait, he could be hurt as a spirit.
This is also served as the first major appearance of of some new succeeding voice actors. Like this was Tony Anselmo's first major role as Donald, because at this point Clarence Nash had already died, and Bill Farmer as Goofy as well, since Pinto Kovic at this point was also dead at this point, I think.
Wait, Bill Farmer started off with this movie? Wow, he's been around.
No. I think his first major appearance, as in like the first big thing, as this first big role as Goofy. Like he might have had like a short or two before this, but this was like the first big thing involving Goofy that he did.
Yeah, I'm sure that'll keep it going.
Of course.
Yeah.
As for Wayne Allwine had already been doing Mickey since the 70s at this point, if I remember correctly.
Maybe if you'd opened your eyes, then you wouldn't have slipped. No, I don't remember you looking like a dog, man.
Interesting choice of having Goofy play the role of Marley. I guess it's for using this as comedy relief.
Class. Yeah. What he said.
Especially also considering how Goofy is normally portrayed as a traditionally, good person. But here he's done a role of someone who has damned himself to a turn.
Like you yourself said, Theo, that they're trying to use the more prominent, known mainstream characters. Whereas if this was made specifically for the comic book audience, they probably would have used one of his butlers from the comics.
I suppose, yeah. Yeah, not again.
I don't want to be shaped. Just sneak over.
Of course. Yeah, I mean, you can't have Goofy without...
Obviously.
Well, I guess Jacob Marley died again. Well, good night, guys. That's his way of, it's almost like Princess Daisy. That's the only word he can say, humbug.
So yeah, the Ghost of Christmas Past here is played by Jiminy Cricket. I guess it kind of makes sense. I guess he needed a part-time job after being Pinocchio's conscience.
Maybe this is the alternate timeline where Pinocchio killed him, like in the original story.
He's the same voice actor that voices him in the Kingdom Hearts games.
Yeah, I think so.
Here he's voiced by Eddie Carroll, who voiced him in the original Pinocchio, I believe.
Oh wow!
Oh, it was still the original. Wait, Eddie Carroll? No, Dwebs. That's not the original.
Remember?
When did Pinocchio come out?
1940. It was right before Fantasia.
Let me.
It was like Disney's second or their third film.
Actually, second, Joe, but the first was Snow White.
No. I'm pretty sure the second was Bambi.
No, Bambi was the fourth one.
He was voicing Jiminy Cricket up until 2008.
There you go.
Chain of Memories. Well, Chain of Memories.
So I guess they changed it for... Well, I don't remember that much of a difference. I guess the successor that they chose for Recoded actually sounded right.
Well, Disney's very good about that, Teo. They always go out of their way to try to find actors who can mimic the voice to it.
True.
You know? Remember, Tony Anselmo actually was subtly trained by Clarence Nash to be the new Donald without himself even knowing.
Yeah. Told us.
I'll be sure to tell that story next time we have a more Donald driven.
Center.
Well, in terms of adaptations that I've seen, I think this is a better one than the one Patrick Stewart did. That one was just dull.
Basically, Webb's the original voice of Jimmy Cricket was Cliff Edwards, who was a prominent stage and radio actor at the time, and he voiced the character until 1971.
And this was 1983.
And I'm checking the wiki right now. In between casting until they've managed to find Eddie Carroll to voice him, Clarence Nash replaced Cliff Edwards for a bit.
All right, this is actually the only thing that I'm kind of willing to point out a bit. It shows Daisy as the role of the old love interest for Scrooge. Now, I normally wouldn't even bother because I mean she's the most recognizable female love interest in this case, or in that case for love. But this is the thing. Technically, yes, this is the first appearance of Scrooge, and Karl Barks managed to create a great love interest for him in the life and time of Scrooge. So I was theorizing, well, later on, obviously, when I actually read them, I was theorizing they would have used that because.
Well, technically, The Life and Times was written by Don Rosa, wasn't it?
Well, to be fair, his love interest did also.
Taking the works of Karl Barks and putting the pieces together.
Yeah. But like he was, well, regardless. The point, again, Teo, same logic. That character was not at all known to the mainstream audience.
Actually, wait, hold on.
That's the thing. So was Scrooge himself. So I'm guessing there was no big loss in doing this.
Not only that, but she actually did show up in the TV show, so she technically was known by the mainstream. If you know, you're friend of people who mainly know more about that stuff via the show.
Well, she's not even that. On screen for a long time.
Hold on, I'm curious. What TV show are you talking about, Joe?
The original DuckTales show.
But the original DuckTales show was not. That was after this, Jova.
Well, true, yeah, but Miko, like Tia said, he wanted to do the whole mainstream thing, though. I mean, Scrooge technically was...
But by mainstream, I mean by the time 1983 was a thing, because DuckTales wasn't a thing by this point, so people didn't really know Scrooge or the lore of the comics.
And I suppose they didn't want to take too many risks, I guess. Keep in mind, like I said, it's more than one of the...
Remember, Tail, this was the Dark Age. This was the Dark Age of Disney Animation. They couldn't afford to take risks.
Obviously, this choice was actually very logical, using Willy the Giant from the Beanstalk short movie as the Ghost of Christmas Present.
I think the most interesting thing about this is, like, well, they definitely pay homage to the source materials of every character that shows up, you know. It's essentially just taking the character from their original thing and popping them into a role. Like a Christmassy Kingdom Hearts of sorts.
Again, just like what the Muppets version did.
Maybe not mince pies, but the rest sound good. Shingle with shingle. With yogurt.
What is this generosity you speak of?
Yeah.
Touché.
Yeah, for a second there I thought he ate Scrooge, and I'm like, well, that would be that was an interesting twist on the story. I remember Charles Dickens saying, and then the ghost of Christmas Present ate Scrooge. Although the only Charles Dickens
I guess that works.
The only Charles Dickens book I've read is Oliver Twist.
Good times, I guess, to him.
Yeah, it was quite a story.
Geez.
Wrong house. This is the house of my banker, you idiot! Oh wait, I am my own banker.
Funny story. Mickey actually has two nephews in the comics, but they're not even used that much. So
You mean, Spirit? You mean to tell me that other people aside from me need food to survive? I wasn't aware of this.
Their electricity ran out. No wait, the electricity doesn't exist yet. Their gas ran out. And now we get.
Yes, Scrooge. Scrooge. You are responsible for the death of Tiny Tim. Can you leave that on your conscience?
So now we have the ghost of Christmas yet to come.
yeah, it's another good choice, but it will become if you haven't understood by the corporature, it will become understandable in a bit.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah, unfortunately, Scrooge, he succumbed to a deadly disease, greeditis.
I don't remember if in the book is specifically explained what Tiny Tim suffers, but it's clearly something that
Something bad.
doesn't
I think
allow
it's
you
about
to...
that the family is not able to pay for enough food,
Yeah.
and he's incredibly weak for.
Yeah.
Grave robbers.
Are they meant to
Actually-
be British or Australian?
Actually, I thought they were actually what's the term responsible for the graveyard, not actually robbers.
Depends. Normally, it gets to him being grave robbed.
And of course, it had to be.
It's Scrooge.
And it's not Jim Cummings voicing him. That's weird.
This was before
Yeah,
Jim
yes.
Cummings got the
Yeah,
main
this was
role
before-
of him.
Yeah,
Plus,
this was
he has 3 lines. Those two and wah ha 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 ha.
yeah, this was before Jim Cummings became as prominent as he is right. I think this is still one of the, if not the original, definitely very close.
So yeah, ladies and gentlemen.
Go to hell.
If you want someone to change, scare the shit out of them.
It
Well, Pinocchio is a thing.
Not only that, remember if you
Oh.
remember, Batman Noel had an interpretation of it around that point. Scrooge was actually having a heart attack.
There you go, Theo. Jim Cummings only started out his career as a voice actor a year after this thing came out with Transformers.
He just missed that by a chance.
Oh, he was in Gummy Bears.
Yep.
Oh, here's an interesting thing, Theo. Guess what his first oh wait. Oh, never mind. This doesn't. Guess what his yeah, here you go. Here's what his first technical movie role was for Disney.
What?
The Brave Little Toaster.
Oh, gee.
He-
Wait,
he
Brave
wa-
Little
he-
Toaster is Disney?
Yes.
I should have
Yeah,
well,
Wait,
I
is
think
it?
at this point it belongs to. That doesn't belong to them at this point.
God, I
think it
can't
does.
remember.
Well, okay, okay. Even if it doesn't, whatever. The point is,
His first
Um,
major role that people may remember.
Yeah, he was the evil clown from Very Little Toy.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
He was also the second bullet from Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
And then it turns out those two are just scammers. Why does the pony look like he has a toilet seat around his neck?
Oh, that's the horse from Ichabod Crane.
That's a horse and that's a horse collard with that's actually used for that purpose.
I don't remember them being that big though.
That study some history.
My thing at school, Tio, when it comes to history, wasn't this era.
Hmm.
Yeah, Merry Christmas, eh? Oh, yeah, nearly ruined the surprise there. Yeah, stop spoiling it.
Yeah, that too. But...
Yeah, to give you toys. Well, I didn't know a turkey constituted a toy, but sure.
Ah, he said the line.
Well, it's a Christmas card. You have to have that
It's
line
also
in
real,
there.
actually, hearing a mainline Disney character mentioning God.
You can't have Christmas Carol without that line.
It's like having Oliver Twist and not having him. Please, sir, may I have some more?
And there you go.
There you go.
It is a short through and through, so obviously it knows how to end. Even if even if it seems abruptly, that's actually nice how it ends. This.
Well, that was a nice short. I can't wait for the Disney film to come on immediately afterwards.
It's gonna be awkward if eventually we do a Christmas pick of Disney's House of Mouse, the Christmas movie.
Yeah, then we've oh shit, we've already done this one.
I guess it'll be nice if we missed anything.
Anyway, final thoughts. Dibs, go ahead.
Yeah. I've always enjoyed this interpretation of A Christmas Carol ever since I saw it on the House of Mouse Christmas special DVD thing. It's rather obviously they might have had to cut a lot of stuff out, and I kind of wish some of the segments went on a little bit longer because honestly, I think showing Scrooge one shitty thing through each era might not exactly be quite enough motivation for him to change. I think the original story showed a lot more and and showed it longer. But it's a 25 minutes short. You have to condense it down.
Mm-hmm.
And other than maybe it hopefully being a little bit longer, it's a really good adaptation of it. And it's certainly better than the one that I mentioned earlier, which we'll get to eventually.
Wait, what one?
Maybe next Christmas.
The Patrick Stewart one.
Yeah.
I actually haven't
How
seen
would you
that.
mess up something with Patrick Stewart? That sounds like easy.
Make it boring.
Even better, Joe. But how do you mess up
Wait,
a Christmas Carol?
how do you
The
do
script
that,
basically
though?
writes itself.
Yeah.
Like each year for Christmas, we'll do a adaptation of A Christmas Carol.
Yeah. there's probably been like 6,000 of them.
I wonder if anyone's made a sequel.
How do you make a sequel of A Christmas Carol?
The most variation I've seen.
Disney have made a business out of making sequels to classic fairy tales to find out
Yeah, but
whatever
that's turned out
happened
for a
after
reason.
Happily Ever After. Hey, don't you diss Cinderella free.
Yeah, that
Anyway,
movie was actually good. Shut up.
If you're done
Yeah,
with
but that was like 1 out of how many? They made?
Anyway,
I like Lion King too, but whatever.
I love
Are
that
you done
movie as
with
well.
That movie has a plot contrivance, and I can't ignore it.
True, but I still like it better than the first one.
I like the
All right.
songs.
You're
We'll get
done
to
with.
Lion King 2 eventually. Yeah, I'm done.
All right, next, Pedro.
Yeah, it's a really good adaptation for what it is. Although it's not the best, like Dweb said, because they have to condense it a lot, and it kind of harms the pacing of the story a bit. Like it does suffer from its short running time. Like it cannot take its time to fully flesh out the drama, and as a result, it can fall a little bit flat compared to the original book or even some of the longer adaptations. But it's still a Christmas classic Disney short anyway, so it's still great. So yeah, it works just fine for what it is.
All
That's
right.
basically it. It's Christmas Carol. There's nothing that much to say.
Shirai.
Yeah, like Pedro said, it could have probably been about maybe 45 minutes or so, like maybe as long as a Good Times movie is. But aside from that, it's a fine adaptation.
Good Times Christmas Carol. I wonder how
Yeah,
that.
I'm surprised they didn't try it yet.
They did. Wait, they didn't make
No,
one.
No, they didn't actually. That's
Surprised.
wow.
Huh.
Yeah, like one of the only people who didn't make an adaptation of it.
That is shocking.
Jet
All right,
Lag
continue.
Jet Lag Productions is a Christmas Carol, a wholesome Merry Christmas.
Could have been good.
Go ahead, Jova.
Yeah, I mean, I love this adaptation. Now, yeah, in hindsight, there are quite a few things I would change. Like, I mean, sure, maybe back then they didn't have as much space, but there are definitely some character roles I'd maybe twist and turn around. And I will say, yeah, that is one thing about the short running time is like, well, it's nice getting to see a lot of these characters, but sadly we don't get to see them all the much force to their potential. Then again, this was meant to be a shorter featurette. So I'd say, in terms of being a short and one that probably needed to be budgeted, it did its job. But I wouldn't be remiss to see them try this again, only, fleshed out proper to its more bigger length and whatnot. That said, though, it's handled finally relatively well enough. Voice acting, of course it's good. It's Disney. Animation, on par as per usual. And yeah, it's overall a fine adaptation.
All right,
All
I'll conclude then. Yeah, this is a classic, but like everyone else said, it has the shortcomings, mostly dictated by the time it was made. For me, it has the nostalgic value, but other than that, I can see the fact that there are better versions to see. For example, I think just for the more direct comparison, the Muppet one is already a better viable alternative potentially. But I don't want to demean also the some values that this adaptation has. Like we said, it was the jumping point for a lot of new voice actors, and it was done in a time where Disney was uncertain on what to do. So it's it's a nice thing, and of course it's a nice thing as the official introduction of the character Scrooge to non-comic media. With basically the story that he takes the name from. It's actually very logical. But yeah, I still enjoyed it. Just don't take it as the adaptation of Christmas Carol. And
Unless
with
you're a
that,
really
we
big Disney buff, well, actually, okay, unless you're a very big 80s Disney buff, because they already made a better version with Jim Carrey anyway.
And with that, we conclude our 5 Christmas movie. I hope you enjoyed the festivities, and I hope you watched something better than unaccompanied minors. So,
Or the magic gift
see,
of the snowman.
or Magic Kingdom Silver, yeah. See you next year.
So, yeah.
So yeah.
See ya.